In a move that could haunt the GOP, Donald Trump's allies have now ordered mass layoffs at the Republican National Committee. It comes just days after Trump's allies, including his daughter-in-law, took command of the RNC. Headlines calling it a, quote, bloodbath and a, quote, mob-like takeover, with more than 60 officials, including senior staff members, laid off or asked to resign and then reapply. It's reportedly part of a strategy to ensure that only staffers committed to Trump and the MAGA movement are left at the RNC. In other words, it looks like a purge of members deemed insufficiently loyal to MAGA. Politically, that could be dangerous, though, for Republicans. The rise of MAGA has led to a multi-year GOP losing streak in national elections, a streak Trump's main GOP primary rival, Nikki Haley, blamed on him.
Donald Trump lost in 2018. He lost it for us in 2020. He lost it for us in 2022. Everything he touches, we lose.
But the purge of the RNC could also give Trump more control over the organization's finances. Remember, weeks before becoming RNC co-chair, Laura Trump indicated the RNC might pay Trump's legal bills.
Do you think paying for President Trump's legal bills is something that is of interest to Republican voters?
Absolutely.
After those comments, Trump's campaign insisted the RNC wouldn't be paying his legal bills. But some RNC members were concerned enough to want to put it in writing, drafting a resolution to prohibit the RNC from paying Trump's bills. And yet, that resolution was never adopted. Some RNC members are speaking out, criticizing the move. RNC member and Vermont GOP chair Paul Dame saying, quote, "It's something between a purge and a takeover, and that's a concern for me." Now Trump allies taking control of the RNC. Joining me now is Paul Dame, RNC member and state chair of the Vermont Republican Party, and Molly Jong-Fast, MSNBC political analyst and special correspondent for Vanity Fair. My thanks to both of you for being here. Paul, I'd love to start with you. Before the break, we talked about your reaction, which was, you say it's something between a cross between a purge and a takeover. Tell us what's going on and why you feel so concerned about the RNC.
Yeah, at the time, that I had that conversation, it was a lot of speculation. That was before the news that broke Monday, indicating that almost 60 staffers had been cut. So it was really interesting for me. I had some concerns. Friday, we were in Houston. We voted for the new chair and co-chair. And I left thinking, all right, I'm going to give these folks the benefit of the doubt. And the first business day after that, we're seeing major changes at the RNC, and it's really affecting the people closest to the ground. A lot of the regional political directors and state directors were being affected by this. And that's the people that state parties like mine interact with on a regular basis. So it's kind of created some uncertainty about what's going to be happening at the RNC moving forward and how do state Republican parties interact with the national organization.
Paul, I just want to go back to something you said. On Friday, you actually voted to vote in Laura Trump and Michael Whaley, who are the chair and the co-chair, or the co-chair and the chair, respectively. And you said you wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt, but did you really think, though, putting somebody like Laura Trump in a position like that, being the daughter-in-law of Donald Trump, did you really think that was going to be the best idea, considering everything that we had heard about plans to maybe use the RNC as Trump's personal piggy bank?
Well, I had a very frank and direct conversation with Laura Trump during that meeting before the vote, and I got assurances from both her and Chairman Whatley that using RNC donor funds for legal purposes was out the window. We've also heard other staff say that, so I was willing to take them at their word, and until we see that change, we'll just have to watch what the actions are.
So, Paul, my follow-up question then is, well, what recourse do you and others that have a concern about this purge that is happening at the RNC, what's the recourse for you if you don't think that these are the right moves that need to be done at the RNC?
The Republican Party is still built from the bottom up. At our next meeting, members have a lot of options. It'll be the meeting right before the convention, so things about rules, passing resolutions, and then ultimately, next January, there will be a new vote to elect leadership. The term ended prematurely here when Ronna McDaniel stepped down. So Michael Whatley is just filling from now until next January. And so Republicans will, from all 50 states and the territories, will have an opportunity to weigh in after we see the November election results on what happens. And I think my concern has been that it looks like Trump is kind of moving the RNC in the same direction we've seen the DNC for years, being very top down. A lot of people saw how superdelegate situation in the DNC really robbed Bernie Sanders of an opportunity. And up to this point, the RNC has been very much bottom up, but maybe that's changing under Trump leadership.
Molly and I are going to disagree with you on that. Molly, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very nice Republican talking point to say that about superdelegates stealing from Bernie. But in fact, it's from 2016. It's not true. It's been widely debunked. And also, I might add, Bernie was quick to endorse Joe Biden and has again. I understand that Republicans are upset about what's happened to the RNC, but I do not think this is the moment. You know, I mean, you have a problem with your party and you know what's going to happen to state parties, but I don't know how much this has to do with the DNC.
Well, and Molly,
it's a comparison. DNC has been very top down, and RNC hasn't. But this is changing that.
I'd love to see some reporting that would follow up on that.
And I would say, Paul, I'm not quite sure you can say that it's not top heavy at the Republican Party if Donald Trump is the person who's controlling the purse strings as well as the people. Molly, let me follow up with you quickly on something. Nikki Haley, the biggest primary rival, right, for Donald Trump, the one who kind of outlasted the head of lettuce, kind of warned that Trump is going to be a loser for the GOP. His policies, his stances have been losers for the GOP. As your friend and our friend Rick Wilson has said, everything that Trump touches dies. Is there a concern that if Trump is basically taking over and purging the RNC, Molly, that the RNC will no longer survive?
Well, I mean, eventually the RNC will rebuild itself, but it certainly is a question as to why the RNC is handing the keys over like this. And, you know, Lara Trump has said publicly that she thought the RNC should pay Trump's legal bills. So it sounds like maybe she's walked that back. But, you know, look, Trump has a lot of legal bills. And, you know, I think there are a lot of state parties that could use the money from the RNC. So, and really the job is, you know, that on the ground organizing, which it sounds like the RNC may not have this cycle. And I think they could probably use it.